Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. Today, we're going to do another kind of self-taught or self-paced program. We're going to be going over Udacity, their front-end Nanodegree. So I invited 3 graduates on from that program, and we're going to hear about their experiences. So like usual, let's go ahead and get started with our intros. Let's see. Okay, heads up, I'm winging it this entire episode, so let me think of questions to ask. Lewis, if you wouldn't mind answering when you graduated from the program, are you still kind of looking for a position, or have you found a position, and then your previous industry? And just ask me to remind you those questions in the future.
Okay. Yeah, so I graduated, I want to say like 5 months ago or so, probably longer than that. And I am looking for work currently, getting lots of like first interviews and then starting to talk to recruiters and then figuring out which ones I actually hear back from and things like that. Before this, I was a manager at a, casual dining restaurant. So, definitely got into starting the front end development stuff a while ago. Like I've done Udacity, I've revisited it and stepped away and then come back to it because either life things or just super busy with work. Because food service stuff, sometimes if you are a manager, you're having to step into where I was stepping into other stores where people had been let go and trying to quote unquote fix things there. So that would get in the way. So it was kind of nice that I could stop it and then I could start back up. What else was I supposed to answer with that? I thought that was it.
Yeah, that's great. Seriously, okay. Thank you. How about you, Patrick?
So I graduated March of 2020, and I started, I want to say it was December of 2019. And I dabbled in front end for about a year and a half before. And I come from the hotel industry. So pastry chef for a hotel in Midtown, Manhattan. And I've been in that for about 15, 16 years. And I just needed a new challenge, and I started a chocolate company. So I did the website for that, and that kind of was like, oh, wow, I think I want to do something else. Because doing the website, I was like, oh, let me look into this. And so I did a little bit of Treehouse, and then I bought some courses off of Udemy. And those kind of helped out to figure out what avenue I wanted to go down. And I am currently looking for a position. It just seems that there's not a lot of junior openings out there. I'm not sure if the other few people on here are the same in that situation.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to interrupt or not, but yeah, 100%. You see stuff that's it'll say 3 to 5 years of experience, and then, or you'll get recruiters hitting you up for senior level jobs when it clearly says that you're a junior developer in your LinkedIn. And then when you ask them for things that are more junior level, they're kind of wishy-washy about it. And they're like, oh, I'll look. And then
I get that.
Anyone again. And it's really I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time, but it's really frustrating because I'm not super confident in my abilities. So it's I want to get to a place where I can learn more. And it's trying to convince people that you're able to, you already have a background in all this. You took the initiative to learn on your own, and then translating that and telling them hey, I'm someone that you can invest time and money into because I want to learn more about this. And I don't want to just go through the motions.
Yeah, I feel that if you didn't take the initiative to do Udacity or a boot camp, you're not going to want to learn in the new job, so taking the initiative to do that, it should show automatically, hey, I'm a self-starter. I want to learn. If I'm stuck, I'll find a way to learn.
And I think a lot of people share your frustration. I mean, that's why I started this. Trust me. And well, I mean, I started this before. Well, no, actually, this podcast was started after COVID. But basically, the job market has continued to be squeezed, and it's become more competitive for junior developers. Like this is something everyone is facing, and we can dive into that a little bit more down the road as well. But yeah, you are not alone with this. I promise you that. All right. How about you? Oh, wait. I want to ask you, Patrick, real quick. So are you currently looking for a developer position?
No, I'm currently looking for UX design, but I'm thinking that because most of the job descriptions, it has like that plus, like this kind of would help you if you know HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And I think you also should know what you're handing off. Like I can design something fantastic, really crazy animation, but if my development team doesn't know how to implement it, I just wasted, whatever amount of time that I spent creating it. So I think I was looking at it that it would help me, and it's kind of like another set of tools in my bag. But no, I'm currently looking. If something popped up and the conversation went in, I wouldn't say no, to a front end developer position.
All right, cool. That gives us some context because people are curious about people going through these programs that don't necessarily become developers. For example, they get into UX, they get into design, they get into project management, and people are interested in this. That's what they've been telling me. So I was actually really excited to bring you on. But I think you have the right idea with design. I just got done with another podcast episode with Perpetual Education, talked to him, and he made a really accurate and interesting statement. Like if a designer doesn't really even know the box model, they don't really know what they're designing for, they don't really understand the medium, they're going to be less competitive in today's world. So I think you have the right mindset there. Okay. How about you, Judith? Thanks for being patient. You are muted.
All right. So for me, I graduated, that was May last year. Yeah, that was when I graduated from Udacity. So one of the reasons why I had to go in was because I had knowledge already, but I wanted to join a bigger team, and that requires a lot of experience, a lot of things for me to be able to work with bigger teams. So that was why I had to go for the Udacity course, Nanodegree course. And then that was during the pandemic, and I actually wanted to, learn some new stuff that I don't know about before.
Okay. So are you currently looking for a developer position right now?
All right. So after going for I was actually working in a fintech company as a developer experience engineer. So there, I was actually doing more of the front end aspect, trying to build some stuff, kind of sample projects for developers to maybe kind of sample project for developers to make use of. So I wasn't doing that of the front end development much there because the role was not really a front end role 100%. So that was under the developer experience team. So as time goes on, I had to try to learn new stuff, and I dived into that mobile development. So I'm actually learning iOS, that's Swift. So currently, what I'm looking for is opportunities under iOS. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome context. And so one thing I noticed about Udacity, it definitely attracted a lot of people with different backgrounds. And I think I isolated it specifically to the United States just because it's easier to get everyone on at one time for me. But yeah, all over the world, people were definitely signing up for Udacity. But yeah, These are good intros. I appreciate the extra context. I'm excited to dive in. So we'll kind of just start off with why did you choose Udacity? What attracted you to it? And I usually give people a heads up, but feel free to just, if you have a response, say it. Sometimes we'll talk over each other a little bit. That'll happen, but things will sync up about 10 minutes into it.
Yeah. I can start. I actually started because I had a friend that went through the program, and like I did more so recently, like had the free time, got through it and got a job. I don't remember. He's like a friend of a friend. So like I talk to him every now and then. But he got through the program and slowly like got up and got a job doing what he wanted to do. And I know it changed. He did the front end, Nanodegree, and I know it changed into something else that he's doing now, and seemingly very successful at it, because my other friends talk about how he's doing and things like that.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was kind of just that easy. Somebody had just suggested that I could try it, and there were like the free trials and stuff, how they kind of, I wouldn't say they suckered you in because I enjoyed it, but it drew me into it from that.
Good for them for putting out a good free trial then. How about you guys? You're muted again.
Sorry. All right.
You're fine.
For me, why I decided to go for Udacity was because I had some people that graduated from Udacity. Looking at where they are as of that time, I also want to be there. So I felt like Udacity gives you all that you need for you to get to the top.
Okay. How about you, Patrick?
So I was doing some things on Treehouse before, and I looked at Udacity because they also had the help after you did the program with your resume, your cover letter, and Treehouse really didn't have that. And the other thing is I was looking at, this was, I think, when Udacity first started, they had you'll do the program and then we'll help you get a job guaranteed or something like that. So that was when it was first on my radar. And then they stopped doing that because I think they were getting so many customers that they couldn't really help on a one-to-one basis. This was probably going back maybe a couple years, 2-3 years or something like that. But I was looking at the stars on Google searches, and it was also created by a former, I think he was Google, so he had that background, and the price was comparable to the other ones, so it really didn't come down to, I only have X amount of dollars.
Okay.
I can actually add to that a little bit because I did it off and on for 3 years or so. I did the free trial thing to begin with, and then they actually had I almost completely forgot about it. They had a Grow with Google Challenge scholarship thing that I applied for and got. And
same here.
At that point, I did that and got through a large chunk of it, and it was there was just one part where it wouldn't line up with what was going on in my life to being able to complete it on time, because I had to work full time and things like that. So yeah, the connection with Google is definitely there. So that's another thing that drew me, I guess, back to it after I had been doing it before.
Okay. So one thing I like to hear is how people went about filtering out, that specific program, because it gives people ideas of what they should be looking for. And it sounds like, Lewis and Judith, you had friends, you had examples of people that were successful with it. But Patrick, you did your research, you looked at reviews, and you kind of really dug into it. So I think that's going to give people pretty good advice.
Yeah. I had sorry to cut you off, but I had a friend who is in back end and he went to college for it. And he was kind of weary. He's like, Pat, you get, it's kind of a little too late for you. You should have done it in college, and I was like, that can't be the only answer. Like, there has to be something else. And then the boot camps, what's the one in New York City? General Assembly, I think it is. It was like $18,000, and it was for 6 months full time. Like, I can't leave my job for 6 months, and also, by the way, here's almost 20 grand, so it limits you. I think when you're put into a box, you kind of can get a little bit more creative instead of having this big open expanse where you're like, those rules help you, and that kind of narrowed it down to, Udacity, Treehouse, and I think there was one other I was looking at.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's the main attractive thing about this is it's accessible to a lot of people of all different incomes. So what did you learn? What did the front end program go over?
I'll hop in quick. So it was a little bit more than I thought front end. Like, front end, I thought was HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. It taught, but this program did Node.js, Express.js, so I think it was maybe like the last 3 projects you did a little Node.js that tied into your front end, which I was a little surprised that which is, I think, is a good thing, because you would, again, know when you're handing off your front end, what your back end engineer will have to do. So maybe you can kind of help set up so it's a smooth handover. But yeah, that was my program. I don't know if it changed a couple months after.
There definitely were like small changes to it. I think when I first started doing it, they were actually doing stuff with, I'm forgetting. And JavaScript, what's the other language for it? Or not other language.
jQuery?
Yeah, they initially did jQuery stuff, and then like the program didn't change too much from like I basically did it over like a period of 3 years. The program didn't change too much, but that was one thing that I did notice came out of it was that there wasn't any more jQuery. So I kind of forgot where I was getting at with that, but I guess the good thing about Udacity was that they actually changed with the times. So like that's over the span of 3 years that they made those little changes in there, and it kind of, they're updating their course and making it so whoever's taking it is actually learning stuff that they're going to use instead of teaching somebody jQuery and them going somewhere and everyone being like, well, yeah, but we don't use that anymore.
All right, so for me, they actually introduced new technologies for front end, and also that actually exposed me to new things like Webpack, because initially it was like front end is just all about HTML, CSS, and maybe that of JavaScript, but it actually exposed me to other technologies, and it was really, it's cool.
Okay. So they taught you Webpack. Did they teach you React?
Okay, no.
Not for me.
There was no, during my time, there was no React. So everything was just focused on JavaScript. There was nothing like React. React was another Nanodegree on its own. So the front end during my time was just like HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Do you feel like when you finished that Nanodegree, the front end Nanodegree, do you feel like you were hireable? Do you feel like you were competitive with other junior developers?
Yes. I said yes because the last project I worked on was a weather app. So I've actually not built something of that nature before. But after that project, I felt like, okay, I can actually pick up something and work on something in a team. So, and I felt like, yes, I've gotten what I want. So the last project actually exposed me to a lot of new things that I had no idea about before.
Okay.
I kind of don't feel like you were directly hireable right after it. That being said, I did more to try and make myself like that. I did, Patrick mentioned the Udemy courses, which I did some of those. And I also did Scrimba, if you've heard of that as well.
Yep.
So I've finished like those programs as well, which was awesome because they fill in the gaps. So I think like a better idea is to do like one central kind of online boot camp and to kind of round it out with other ones. Like Scrimba, I think is $25 a month or something like that. And stop me if I'm like going too far away from like the Udacity thing that you want this to be about. But things in Scrimba, like you were talking about, it was the the front end degree, but they did go into React. They didn't go super heavy into it, but they went into React. And like the Udemy course is just following along with them. But sometimes there's certain gaps in like where Udacity will tell you to do something, Udemy will explain why it's being done because somebody's doing it in front of you as you're like following along. I don't want to say copying, but it's kind of, that's what you're doing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying that's, I'm a visual learner. So Udacity was a little struggle for me because it was more of here's kind of like the documentation if you would go to React or another language, and it would just spell it out. So to, like you were saying, to fill in the gaps, you on Udemy or Scriba, you saw someone doing it and it kind of explained the why it was being done, not just this is what you have to do. So the videos, or cause like I said, because I'm a visual learner, it helped to kind of build on the foundation when I was reading through Udacity. So like I said, I did get stuck on a couple of the projects on Udacity, and I had to go to like YouTube or through some of the Udemy classes that I downloaded to kind of help explain one of the topics to complete the Udacity project.
So Patrick, for that, for me, what I actually did was to chat with other students that were taking the courses, and so I actually like made sure I reach out to other people that were on the program as of then. So they're on the phone. They actually like maybe you are having a particular issue on a particular section or a particular project. They'll be able to maybe give you heads up what to do or how to do it. So for me, that was what I actually did.
I went on there was a forum for each individual project, and there was a couple that responded really quickly, and it kind of helped me out because I got to a point where I was like, I set aside a certain number of minutes or hours in it every day that I wanted to do it. And like a couple times I got stuck like right early on, and I was like, I still got like an hour and a half that I set aside. And they got back really quickly. And then there was towards the end, like I think it was the capstone, where it was almost like 2 days before I got a response back in the forum. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long. Let me see if I can search the problem out myself. And I think that could help because in order to problem solve, there's definitely different avenues instead of just getting an answer on a forum, or maybe someone might type on the forum and like one of them sent me to another set of documentation, which was like another language for me. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of right back where I started in the problem. So the forums definitely helped, and I just feel that the different avenues and then pull it together. I was able to fill in the gaps from each location and kind of get a better picture.
Okay. It sounds like they showed you everything that you needed to do, but they didn't really help solidify that knowledge and reinforce why it was being done, potentially how things work together. So it sounds like a big recommendation that you're giving people is, if you're going to go through this program, supplement. They kind of like outline everything that you probably need to learn. And then as long as you supplement that information, you're going to be much better off once you graduate. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, 100%. I think the greatest value in Udacity is the fact that you turn projects in and you get reviews back. So if you are which actually on the capstone, I don't even remember what it was now, but I got super stuck on something. And like pulling out your hair. I think it was something really stupid too, as it usually is. Not stupid, something really simple that I was doing wrong. But yeah, I was able to actually turn something in and just be like, I know this isn't done, but what the hell do I need to do, basically? And without them just flat out being like, you need to do this, it was fairly simple to find the answer after I did that.
Okay. So you get reviews on projects specifically. What are those reviews? Are those code reviews or?
Yeah, it's so you turn in your you can do it through GitHub. So you can turn in through your GitHub account, and I actually have them pulled up over to the side here, and they actually go. They can do it line by line, and it'll be things like you did this is wrong, or this is really good. You've organized this well, or you should have notes in here, and all kinds of things like that, which was kind of exciting to turn your thing in and wait for the review to come back to see either what you needed to change, because sometimes it'd be something super small that was just in the rubric that didn't break anything but needed to be done.
That's pretty cool. I like the idea of code reviews. A lot of self-paced programs don't even have something like that, or they have this program where other students will review your code, but they're also still learning, and you get into issues of, are they even skilled enough to provide the feedback that you need?
Yeah, so one thing about the review is that there's actually a rubric that you have to kind of follow. So I think the reviewers actually follow those rubrics. So they tend to review your code based on what they have on the rubric.
So the reviewers, are they students, or are they instructors or professional software engineers?
Okay, I think the reviewers are students that have graduated, maybe they've graduated from the Nanodegree courses, and because after that you can actually apply as a mentor. So when they select you, or when they get you in, you'll be a reviewer for someone else who is still taking the course. So that's how the review is.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Louis, you had mentioned that you didn't feel ready. You didn't feel hireable afterwards. What were you missing?
I don't know if it's just a confidence thing and my ability to do this one thing. I have utmost confidence that if I start a job, I'm going to be able to, for the most part, be able to do it. It'll just take time for me to get into the swing of things and know how things are supposed to be done. I felt like too much of, and talking to people that I know that do it, it's what you do. I felt like too much of everything that I was doing was, I'm going to have to Google this to make sure that I'm going to do it right, or to get the answer. And now I don't mean like straight up copying anything, but like looking through the different forums and seeing like if I'm using, not the box model. Now I'm not thinking right, to make sure that I'm using the right things for a Flexbox, or like if something isn't lining up right, what I need to do, and constantly Googling things like that to make sure that I'm using row reverse or whatever I need to be using correctly.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
I just felt like there was too much trial and error when I was doing things, which, I mean, I have a few friends that do it, but the friends that I have that do it have been went to school, except for my one friend of a friend that I haven't really talked to. So like for them, everything seemingly is, they just sit down and they can do it because they've been doing it professionally for 10 years. So feeling like I definitely know I couldn't match up to someone like that. So, and it's just not knowing anyone that had gone through the same process besides my one friend who was off now onto his own thing, was kind of daunting. I mean, starting any new job is daunting. So I think that's more of what it is than anything else.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. A big concern I have is if they ever try to sell that this front-end nano degree will get you a job, do they do that? Do they word anything like that in their advertisements?
I think it's more of like a what you can make doing it.
Okay.
So
what you can make doing front end?
Front end, yeah. I think they have a breakdown of the different things like that you can that like what you're expected to make in different like markets and things like that. And they do like they used to, I guess they just stopped it, but they did the like one-on-one coaching after you graduated, and you actually at the end of everything, I think it's still part of the course. I don't know if it's an add-on that you don't have to do, but they help you with your LinkedIn profile. Like you actually have to submit it like you do a project, and somebody goes through your LinkedIn and gives you advice on what you should do with things. So to say that I don't think that I was ready isn't that I don't think that they did their best to get me ready.
Sure.
I just think either just because I had gone through the program for so long and seen things change that, okay, if I go somewhere and get into an office chair and sit down at something, am I right away going to know what to do? It might be that I've been at the same job for 5 years, so I know stepping in every single day what I need to do. And if I went somewhere else, I would not have a clue to begin with the first day.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, I mean, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to say that it's not going to get you job ready. They have several nano degrees. They even have their own React nano degree as well. In my opinion, that front end nano degree isn't going to be nearly enough to get you that job. The fact that you're having to supplement, this is a very common problem for self-paced programs in general. It's not necessarily a problem. It's just, it leans more on the self-taught side of things. And with the self-taught, you're constantly supplementing until you finally get hired and get that position. But, if they're not even going over a front-end framework at all, and they toss that into another nano degree, it sounds like you're going to have to group 2 nano degrees together to even be competitive for front-end positions. And people should know that.
Yeah, I agree. For me, like I said, I've been applying for UX, but I think it might also correlate to also finding a job in front end. Is a lot of the job postings will talk about commercial projects or commercial experience, and not like a nano degree project or a boot camp project. Like they want to see you actually work on a front end or some coding aspect, or in my case, UX case study where it actually shipped, where actually users are using it. And this you don't get in the nano degree. And even though I feel confident, I do have that imposter syndrome. I still have it all the time. Even in the kitchen, I still have that sometimes. But it's like, like there was one recruiter I was talking to. He's like, oh, well, you can go and do like 5 free websites for a local company. Like, I agree, but that would still probably fall under a personal project and not a commercial project, like something with a corporation. That's the way I am viewing things. And a lot of the junior level positions or even mid-level want to see commercial projects that you've done, in like a team or a group and not as an individual.
And I mean, I think you bring up a really good point, but I think it's important to see the value of the project that you're going to build based on a sliding scale of least valuable to most valuable. And so you do the best that you can to provide,
exactly,
most valuable. But kind of just to expand on that, for entry-level positions, I thought that was a great recommendation from your recruiter to be able to build a free website for, a company or anyone else. You could try charge them for it, practice negotiating.
Yeah.
But you also get an opportunity. I would even try to get them to put Google Analytics on it or some sort of conversion tracker and be able to show in your resume, this website that I built for this company increased their sales by 30%. And being able to show that monetary value of what your code actually provides someone, that's high value projects. And most junior developers that are trying to compete don't have stuff like that in their portfolio. They're not willing to freelance. You also talked about this idea of getting a user base behind your app. It doesn't have to be a company. I mean, like company experience with a complex code base is really, that's going to be the higher value project that you can show or experience. But even just building out a project that gives you experience of gaining a user base, even if it's just a personal project, you get some users behind it, they give you feedback, you iterate on that, you add a feature, you change features based on feedback that you got. Like you're demonstrating that you are comfortable with the agile process. And even if you build a project with another junior developer and, one person works on the back end, one person works on the front end, or both of you work on the front end and back end, but you put the project up on GitHub or some sort of source control and you basically, you work together to not step on each other's toes. You review each other's code. Like these are all things real developer teams do. These are all things that you can do to show that you have this experience without actually getting hired just yet. There's a lot of creative things that you can do, but
I just want to add something. But I would think not just Udacity, Team Treehouse, or any other boot camp. I think they should tell you as you're going through, or even before you choose which program you want to go through, that these projects that you create that you can use in your portfolio aren't the be all end all. These will not get you the job. Like you're going to have to do free like a free company site, or even charge a little bit. You're going to have to do some projects on your own after the course. I think in my experience, that's what I was a little shocked after. It was like, well, I already did some projects. Now I have to do more projects. Which, don't get me wrong, the more projects you do, the more you learn. It's just, you see something and you're like, oh, well, these 5 projects are going to help me get the job. Which in reality, they're going to help you learn the languages that you do more projects, then you'll get the job. That's the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
That kind of is, I know it's supposed to be about Udacity, but that's kind of like the thing that they did with Scrimba was they actually, I think it was like one of the last parts of it is, Scrimba sounds a little bit more like personal because they do have people that have like more like social media presence and things like that. Like there's 2 or 3 of them that I actually follow. And one of the things that they say at the end of the course is basically to be uploading. I mean, they say to put meaningful things up on your GitHub, but to pretty much make sure that you're an active presence and you're putting things up on GitHub. You're like, whatever you do, get it up there, make sure you're doing different projects. I don't know that a big selling point of Scrimba is that they tell, or a big part of Scrimba isn't them telling you need to do other things, but it is part of the course for them to tell you, like, this isn't quite the end. You're at the finish line, but you need to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and I had several conversations about coding bootcamps being more transparent, because they really do sell this idea as just pay us money and we're going to get you a job. And it's not that simple. And I think there's a lot of steps in between even just graduating to getting that position that coding bootcamps, even top coding bootcamps, don't really let off, and they don't tell you because they're not going to sell their coding bootcamp. No one's going to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a job guarantee, especially in this economy. So I think that's really realistic. And, as much as I would love to challenge programs to do that and be very upfront about it, it's really tricky because all coding bootcamps, they're trying to sell their product. And if you have like one program that takes the lead, which I would love to see, and, say this is going to be a starting point, this is going to be a step in the right direction, and we're going to get you 95% of the way there. And here's some really good advice to get you 100% of the way there afterwards. So really solidify everything we taught you, get a really cool, complex project up that employers are going to care about, and, they're going to lose signups for it. So if you or anyone, if you can come up, like anyone in the comments, anyone listening, watching, if you have an idea of how we can start encouraging a solution for companies to be more transparent and not lose that business revenue, I would love to hear it, because that's like the really tricky thing. We call for transparency. Now, I'm just speaking of my channel. This is what we do in our channel. We call for transparency, but unless you're giving a business solution that's not going to drop their profits, like, you're just shouting into the wind. It doesn't help anyone. Just saying you need to do this, you need to do that. So I'm curious for my community. If you have any ideas, please let me know. So that's a call to my community. But for Udacity specifically, I think this kind of gives a realistic picture of what it offers. I really like the career services, even if they have that as an add-on module. That's still good. Like, I don't think Treehouse does it. Maybe I'm mistaken. And other programs don't do it. So unless you pay a little bit more money for a coding bootcamp, and some coding bootcamps don't even offer career services, especially the cheaper ones. So that's really good. It was self-paced, so time commitment can vary. What portfolio project did you come out of this program that you were the most proud of, that you felt like was the closest that an employer would care about?
Well, I mean, I believe it was the last project we did where we had to use like 3 different APIs to create a web app. It took lots of tweaking, and there was a lot of different ways that you could do it. But like, you use one API you're supposed to input a zip code and get, I can't even remember all of it. Input a zip code, you're supposed to get a picture, what the current weather is, and I think you're supposed to put like what time you're going to be there at, or something like that. But you have to take the zip code and use that to get information from a different API to put into
like a GeoTrack type.
Yes, there's a GeoTrack to like a weather API to another one that gets the picture. So in order to use the free versions of everything, you have to use information that you get from another API, send out to get back from that. So it's a lot of moving things around. And I think I think the hardest thing I had was figuring out, so I think you put in it's supposed to be a travel thing. Man, I'm jumping all over the place. But I remember having to figure out how to put dates into the API, which was super hard until I figured it out, obviously. But besides that, I used the first thing that I built on Udacity, which was just like a web page, which was just HTML and CSS. And I actually have that live. And then I slowly built it into, using other stuff, slowly built it into a React app that actually has like at nav bar and all that stuff, where it was just like a one-page thing. So strangely, like I'm more proud of the first thing I did because of things I did afterwards, but using those APIs and doing all that stuff and using Webpack along with that, it's with so much stuff that I can't even put it all together into words right now.
Okay. No, I think that was a good summary. Did everyone work on the same projects?
For me, I don't know, Patrick, but for me, I worked on the Weather Journal app. That's really, I was really excited while working on the project because that's so just combination of everything you've learned so far from the beginning to the end, like combining the whole thing, making use of API, calling APIs, that's the weather API and other stuff to build an app. So the weather app was actually like to pull the weather of a particular location. So when you put the location, let's say, for instance, Nigeria, so it actually pulls down the weather for Nigeria at that particular time. So it was really exciting for me.
Okay, so it sounds like the same project, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so every Udemy graduate comes out with the same projects.
Well, I don't really think so, because on checking on other previous projects before my time, I noticed that the projects some of them built was not the same thing I worked on. So I think it actually happened based on maybe year or batch or something.
I think like over the course of when I was doing it, I think like one or two changed. But when I first started at the beginning, I didn't get all the way to the end, so I can't really say for what your big capstone project was, if that changed or not. But in the middle, things either got switched around, or they took one out and added something else, but it did get they did switch it up a little bit.
Okay, so they're updating their curriculum, they're changing their projects over time, over the years. But I think your advice, especially yours, Patrick, once you graduate, you got to start working on your own unique project. You got to figure out what problems exist in the world. You got to definitely solve some real problems that employers are going to care about. Because if you all come out with that same project, employers just get tired of it. It's natural. A lot of programs will produce some of the same projects, but that's where you're not as competitive anymore. It's everyone else has the same project. Everyone else can do what you do. So why are you unique? You know, like what more do you have to offer? What other things have you done with your time to make sure that you're a step ahead of people? And, you know, like there are tons of things that you can do that most people don't. So I'm not trying to discourage anyone, but, yeah, I think that's really good advice to really nail that at the end after you graduate. All right, cool. Well, I think you gave me a good feel for it. It sounds pretty similar to Treehouse, except it sounds like they're offering career services, which is really cool. Offering resume reviews and the one-on-one mentorship. Like a lot of people really, they want to go down the self-taught path, but they want to check in with a professional developer. You know, they just want to make sure they're going down the right route. And that's really what's lacking in a lot of these self-paced programs. So that's pretty cool. If they still offer that, that's awesome. What could they do better?
I'll agree with you about the transparency. I think they're transparent enough, you know, like you said, to get people to sign up. If they're too transparent, people may say, oh, you know, I'm going to be stuck as soon as I graduate, and you're not going to sign up. So I think maybe a little bit more transparency. I would say, even though it was quite a bit of work, the time frame that you're doing it, it's a lot to learn. I think that if they added a little bit more, like if they added a React project, you know, at least you would learn React within front end, because it seems like a lot of the job postings now, React is like the number one that everyone's looking for. And then like Angular, I haven't seen an Angular job posting in quite a while. But if they added something like I said, a project that was React, or another part of, let's say, what's the one? Is it? It's for 3D movement. Is it 3D JS or?
Is it just 3JS or? There's several different libraries for it.
Yeah, like if they taught you some of the libraries that, let's say, then that could kind of get you a job in one of the marketing agencies. Because marketing agencies, you'll do landing pages for a new product. And if you learn some of the libraries to do animation or something like that, I think that would help out in setting you apart from someone else who's just doing the basic HTML, CSS, JS, and a little bit of the back end to tie some things in. You can kind of get a little bit more creative by using libraries, but then you also may learn a library that is obsolete in 6 months. So I could see where you may lose some time by learning a library that is no longer used, then the new greatest library is out.
Well, real quick, just to say, I think you definitely have some insight into the industry, and maybe it's because you're focused on UX, you're focused on the problems of the specific companies and the industries, which is really cool. I wish more developers would kind of take the initiative to get that insight into the companies they're applying to, because like you just said, a lot of marketing agencies build landing pages to convert, and part of that, a lot of those conversions can be increased based on animations and data being shown in specific ways depending on the industry. But it's really interesting how you can stand out that much more with, like, if you're applying to marketing agencies versus all these other developers that have these cookie cutter websites that are just basic CRUD apps, or maybe focus on a front end app with React. They're focused on the technology instead of the actual solutions that are going to integrate into that company, that are going to solve problems within that industry. So that's really cool that you mentioned that. Go ahead, Lewis.
I think that, just going off of what was in other, like in Scrimp, I don't want to keep coming back to that, but if Udacity had kind of some of those people that did have like that social media presence where like you knew that they were actual people, instead of like, this is so-and-so, he worked at Google for however many years, and then he works for us now. And instead of that, having like Strambo seems to have people that kind of don't really work for them. They just like would make a course for them and ship it off to them. And maybe like, I don't know, maybe all those people get together and have a reunion or something like that. I feel like Udacity is just all of them work together, and it's not like a loose association of people that are learning different things. Udacity is more of like people that learn this way and do things this way and then ship it off to you.
So you like the diversity of people with different like skill sets kind of coming together?
Yeah, like
you're saying,
like the people in Scrimba, you could tell actually work at different companies doing different things. The people at Udacity work for Udacity. I guess that was the easier way that I could have said it. But
okay.
Yeah, something like that, where it's like real world people instead of people that just work for the company that's building the LMS for you.
Well, that's interesting, because with most coding bootcamps, they don't outsource their instructors. They might outsource the curriculum and then hire instructors to teach that curriculum. But that's really interesting that you're bringing it up with the idea of bringing in people from different companies to kind of come together to build this curriculum. I'm thinking out loud. Okay, interesting. Thanks for that perspective.
I guess that would go along with your call to action to your people, where you want them to build something that doesn't say you're going to get a job, and rather you're going to keep working at it, but here's how you get to this point where you keep working. Well,
I guess my question for you is, it feels like you have a concern for their lack of authenticity potentially. Like it just seems like when you talk about this this cohesive group of people together, it sounds like they all kind of talk the same, and it feels like you don't really get to know the individual employees as much because they probably all came from different backgrounds. They probably might have been software engineers and built really cool products. I wonder if do you
I mean, they not to take. I'm sorry. I just want to before you go. I like not to take away from it. They do mention that like this is so and so. They worked here and here and now. But now it's like they work for Udacity. Like that's where they work. It's not like this is so and so. They do this, this, and this, and then they also go here, and then you can find out who the person is on LinkedIn or whatever, and you can find out that now they work over at such and such. And there was like one person I actually randomly hit up on LinkedIn because they were when I was sending out things to like try and network with people that actually ended up being one of the instructors at Scrimba. They just happened to also live near me, so I found them. So something like that where it would be someone you could run into on the street.
Okay.
I think I'm kind of straying from what I'm trying to say, but I think you get it.
Yeah, and I think the idea is that you appreciated with Scrimba that they just brought in people from different industries and potentially didn't just hire them. They might even bring in even different people for like their next iteration of their curriculum. And you appreciate that you can actually see them working at different companies, working on different products, and then they all come together, build a cool curriculum, and they go off. I think I got your idea, and that's a really interesting one. Judith, how about you? What could they improve?
So like Patrick said, I think one of the things they should work on is trying to add maybe React. Like React is kind of is the top framework for JavaScript. So as a front-end Nanodegree course, I think they should be able to add React and other maybe frameworks like Patrick said, 3JS for animations and the rest. Because why I say this is because after building the last project, sometimes when you come out, you notice that you are actually not you might think you are there, right? You might think you now have the skills, but you going into the market, you may be working for your company, you see that what you're actually going to meet compared to what you have is not really the same thing. So much is required when you get into a company. So I think they should work on adding React instead of separating React from front-end Nanodegree, because they have React Nanodegree and they have front-end. So I think they should bring the two together. Then also, I also think they should kind of explain more on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's maybe kind of breaking things down, because it looks like if you don't have knowledge, if you don't have basic knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it's actually going to be difficult for you because you have to go back, learn those basics, then come in and start the front-end Nanodegree. So I think they should maybe combine this whole thing together, the basics, the intermediate, and kind of the expert part of the whole thing. So that once you are done with the Nanodegree program, you'll be able to maybe beat your chest and know that, yes, I'm up for the game now, rather than coming out and you start juggling with real life projects and the rest. So that's it.
That's really good advice. And one thing, because there was someone, I'm not going to name them, but I think they were busy, but they shared a bit of what you just shared, Judith. First of all, the React and front end, I agree. They need to pair those together. They can do that. They can keep them separate for people that just want the React portion. Like their marketing team or design team can figure out however to make that happen. But so I like the idea of them selling an individual React course, but I don't like them selling an individual front end course. That's incomplete. And I think you have a good gut feeling about that. But
can I just chime in quick?
Sure.
Okay. I agree with you. Like if they combine them, and like I just started another course, not Udacity, data analytics, because I think that will help me personally with the UX research and compiling data. But they started off where within like the first 5 lessons, you took a quiz, and if you got a certain score, you were able to skip like the next 2 or 3 lessons and start off a little farther down the road. So I could see if brain is going slow today. If Udacity did combine the front end and React and said, hey, this is our front end React Nanodegree. If you know your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, here is a quiz or a set of quizzes. And if you get a certain score, you automatically get credit for that section, and you can go straight to React. So you don't have to do it all over again if you already have projects on the CSS, JS, HTML, or you can say, hey, I'm only taking this for the React, but I already know that. Where am I going to go? Do I have to do a whole new different class? They could say, hey, if you already know this and you just want it for React, take this quiz and you'll get credit for both, kind of. And you can kind of lock it into one set price. And if you're going in from the beginning not knowing everything, you're going to get a kind of like a bigger course out of it, because you're going to start from the beginning, learning CSS, learning HTML, learning Sass, and then you say, well, the next logical step is React. Hey, we already have it built in. You don't have to go anywhere. It's already there for you. And then you get to graduate that.
And I think that's a really good recommendation. I don't know currently how they do their tests, but I think that's a really good recommendation. I would argue most people, those tests aren't very accurate in placement. I would argue most people probably need to review JavaScript fundamentals anyways. But HTML and CSS, for me, when I went to my coding bootcamp, I spent 1.5 years with HTML and CSS. I would not want to go. I needed a front-end program. I needed to get more comfortable with JavaScript, but I didn't need to review that. That's something I was really comfortable with. And so that's something that's really powerful for these self-paced programs to do. If they could really master this way to test out of certain material and do it the right way, whatever that way is, I think they could be very successful in saving people money, which is pretty much what they're designed to do, and still make this career accessible to people. But one thing I wanted to mention real quick, that someone that did message me, it sounds like, his experience was very similar to where what you said, Judith. You probably need to study the fundamentals more before you go into this program if you really want to get the most out of it and you want things to really stick. Because a big recommendation was that it kind of moved over those a little bit too quickly. And there's a big concern with React not being in the main program. But the idea was that he seems to recommend this program to people as long as they get their fundamentals from somewhere else. So we've all kind of talked about, you've had to supplement. They might not do a great job of explaining things in detail, so you really reinforce what you're learning. Do you feel like that's a recommendation you would make, to get fundamentals elsewhere outside of this program, and then you would really get a lot out of this program?
I would agree with that. And for me personally, learning in general, even when I went to college, the teachers only taught you so much, and you still had to go into either textbooks, or when you wrote a paper, you had to go search online. So I think the supplement aspect should be there in general whenever you learn, because I don't think you're going to learn everything from one input into your brain. I think you got to have a couple inputs. But
I like it.
I would agree. Yeah, it's learn the basics, because that was my problems. Like, I knew HTML, CSS, but the CSS I was lacking. I knew enough that I felt, hey, I'm good enough to go into the program. But when I had to change on the last project where we had to chain the 3 API requests, my brain just poof, it was gone, and it took me a while to figure out how to chain them together. I think like the first and the third went right away together, and then the second went after the third, and I was like, well, no, I need the second to get to the third,
Okay. Louis, real quick, I know you've been patient, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up after. Did you want to add anything in?
Oh, no. I was just trying to look through the course for Udacity, because I thought I remembered more of a early on like HTML and CSS thing. And I don't know if they took it out of the front end course and have like their own intro to HTML and CSS. And I think that's what I'm not trying to defend it or anything. I think that's what they did, but I don't know why it wouldn't just be included in the front end developer course to begin with. But you definitely need to have that background before jumping into any of these programs that I've done.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think more importantly, you gave everyone advice that's considering this program. I want everyone to find the right program that's best for them, and I want them to be well prepared going into the program. That means they need a supplement. That's not necessarily a negative thing about the program. Every program is different. Every program has its cons, its faults, and its pros as well. And you need to weigh that. And sometimes, Patrick, it's okay to piece things together. That's a really, you're going to be doing that once you get hired. You're going to be digging around so much to find that solution to your company's problems. So get comfortable with it now. I think that's really good advice. Okay, that's it. This is a really good summary. I really appreciate you sharing all of your experiences. Before we go, let's kind of do shout outs a little bit. Louis, if people wanted to reach out to you potentially, to ask you questions about this program, you don't have to share anything, but if you want to, where could they reach you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I've been in the process of moving, so usually I'm a little bit more active on there. But you can just find me at Louis Steimel. I don't know if you're going to have my name put up there on the podcast or whatever. Feel free to put it on there if they want to reach out to me. That's more than okay. Okay.
Patrick, how about you?
LinkedIn as well. So it's Patrick Cayer, Cayer, or also my website, my full name .com. There you can connect through there. It has my resume, and both those avenues.
Sounds good. How about you, Judith? You're muted. You're still muted, Judith.
So for me, LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but I respond quick on LinkedIn.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, stick around for a couple minutes afterwards. But Louis, Patrick, Judith, it's a pleasure having you on, getting to meet you, and thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, thank you.